Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to your Mercury Retrograde special through the human design perspective with myself, Raphael from Reydiant Reality, and of course, my special guest, Denise Mathew from Human Design with Denise Mathew. So Denise is a human design expert who works with the dynamic human design model. It is absolutely in depth, and she is super brilliant at what she does. You've seen us just recently, we put out the Jupiter moving through Aries video. This is going to be a similar walkthrough with a few little changes. And as always, you can find Denise on her YouTube channel. You can find her on Google via her website. And I really suggest you do and hit that subscribe button. Denise, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk about the Mercury retrograde with us.
And thank you for letting me bend your ear once more about human design. So I'm just as appreciative of the chat about it as much as anybody. So thank you for letting me come again, because it's an exciting topic, especially with this Mercury retrograde. It's very specific and very individual, we'll say.
Yeah, love it. Love that. We were just having a mini conflab before we got started. So there's lots of really good stuff to come. And also we will be using today the Human Design Oracle deck, which if you've seen me use these before, you will now know that Denise is the creator of this deck. So if you want to get a set of those, go over to her channel, hit subscribe, or head over to her website. So Mercury retrograde, right? We're recording this the day before. Probably a little bit ambitious with what we know about Mercury retrograde and what it might mean and what it might do. But I really wanted to get this out, and I think it's a really important topic. There's lots of really interesting stuff around this one. And I am going to approach this slightly differently to a lot of other astrologers. I'll probably be talking about some stuff that it may or may not seem relevant to you, but when I was looking at this, it felt right to talk about this stuff to me. So I really hope that it translates for you guys, and I really hope that it is information that you can use that makes things practical, but also brings that element of, okay, this is why this is taking place. So Mercury is going to go retrograde on May the 10th, and will be retrograde right the way through until June 3rd. In between that, on the 21st of May, Mercury will go cazimi, and I'll talk about why that is important a little bit later on. So I've got a few things here that I want to get through, and then Denise is going to talk to us all about the human design and how this is going to speak to us and really get into it for us. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so this Mercury retrograde is the second retrograde this year of a series of 3 that will start in an air sign and move back into an earth sign. Now, the reason you're probably thinking, okay, that sounds familiar, is because at the winter solstice last year, I think it was actually the 20th, I can't remember the specific date, we had the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. They came together at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Now, what happened there was it kicked off a brand new cycle. So the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, they come together in a group of signs for 200 years at a time. Now, last year, that took place at 0 degrees of Aquarius. That's the first time it's happened in an air sign, besides a blip in 1984, I believe. It's the first time it's happened in 200 years. So that was a huge deal for all of us, because it's bringing in a completely different energy than we've been used to up until this time. Effectively, what happened there was a passing of the baton from stable, grounded, structural, solid, rigid, materialistic Earth. This was all about the economy and resources and how we pull from the ground the things that we need. What's happened is, now that this great conjunction is taking place in the air signs, this is about inspired, ethereal, intelligent, scientific air. It's all about the mind. It's all about communication. So a powerful shift like this from opposite elements. Remember, Earth is tangible, physical, material. Air is, it's connective, you know, everything needs it, but you can't see it, you can't touch it, it's just there. And we know it's there because we're all still here, right? If it wasn't, we wouldn't be. but they're polar opposites in their natures. So in a lot of ways, these Mercury retrogrades, for me, Mercury is integrative, it's connective, communicative, and also, if you know anything about Mercury, the planet, it's ambidextrous. It does everything with both hands, with both feet, with both eyes. It's a very dualistic nature, which is where it gets its, the negative side when people say like, Geminis can be two-faced, and it's not that. There's a curiosity that, that they will pursue. That being said, Mercury also has this tendency to understand, integrate, or play between both sides of things. So I kind of feel like these Mercury retrogrades are greasing the wheels for a lot of us to really help us and assist us on a mental level, because Mercury rules mind, communication, speech, thought, all of the processing of information. I kind of feel like it's acting like a planetary / spiritual / energetic lubricant of sorts that's going to help us down here integrate the energies of air and earth. So this is a really big deal for all of us in a lot of ways. In a previous talk with a tutor, I mentioned that I kind of got this feeling we would be seeing the nervous system of the human race being upgraded. When you think about Aquarius energy, you are literally talking about the systems, especially like the nervous system of the body. So the fact that that great conjunction took place in the sign of Aquarius, really, for me, it feels like Mercury is going along and mopping everything up and saying, right, you guys don't really understand this yet, but let's pull some of this in together. It's kind of like, when you're making a cake, and you've got one hot element and you don't want to cook the egg. So you have to add just like a little spoon at a time to kind of integrate, and then you can dump the whole lot in. Sometimes you hedge your bets if you're like me and you're impatient. We'll see. So Mercury going retrograde in an air sign, coming back into an earth sign, it's going to be hitting all of these points this year. We had one in January when it came out of Aquarius back into Capricorn. We've got this one, which is crossing the border of Gemini back into the sign of Taurus. And then around September, we've got the one that's happening in the sign of Libra coming back into Virgo. The reason this is important is because as Mercury comes out of that air sign, it's going to cross over that 0 degree point. So look to the air signs in your chart, and actually to the earth signs as well. So you're going to be looking right at the very end of the earth signs and right at the very beginning of the air signs. If you have anything in those points of the chart, that's what's going to be activated by this Mercury retrograde. So that being said, this is also providing us with an internal understanding. It might even be at a level that is probably and possibly more conscious than we'll believe it to be. And the reason I say that is because I get the feeling that Mercury is actually very responsive. In terms of stimuli and information. You have to give information to Mercury in order for it to go into action and to do something. So it's more responsive rather than generative, if that makes sense. So taking a small bit of that air energy, coming back into the earth sign and then pushing forward, creating a sort of hybrid bridge between these two energies for us. The way that I kind of saw this when I was writing this down was it's kind of like an inoculation. They give you a little bit of something, and then that kind of sets your system in play to say, oh, okay, I know how to fight this now. When it goes direct in the earth signs at the very late degrees, it's going to allow some of that, well, all of that knowledge with a new understanding to come forward. This is going to be setting something right or something into motion. And this really feels for me like, and I've mentioned this before and it keeps coming up a lot recently, so I'm hoping I'm not due for breaking any bones, but it's like when a bone snaps into place. There's a feeling of rightness. It's like when you go to the chiropractor or the osteopath and they adjust your back or one of your bones, and it's like, oh, like the initial jolt is really intense, but then after that whole feeling of, yes, my system needed that. So this Mercury retrograde is likely to do that. As we are talking about Gemini and Taurus, this is where the ideas meet the environment. So this is like whatever is in here, whatever's a concept or a thought, it needs to be brought down to ground. It needs to be given weight. It needs to be made real. It's where tradition meets change and where wealth may meet equality. And I'm really looking forward to that part of this. All right, so this could also be where we see, where we start to learn more. That's the Gemini aspect, about food. That's the Taurus aspect. Not just about how to grow, food or to cultivate it, but also what else it might be good for. So I would expect over this Mercury retrograde, a lot of people to start getting really, maybe not like serious, but starting to be more interested in herbal lore, what herbs are good for this, what food is going to help with that, being really clear on, okay, yes, this is, it sustains me, but actually it has a dual purpose. There's that Mercury sort of energy in play again. We'll also probably see, and so some of the herbs that I'm going to mention here, fennel, dill, aniseed, and parsley. So I don't know if any of you know, and this I found really interesting because it kind of spoke to these two levels that we're going to see. Fennel, really good for digestion of food, and although that's sort of more a Virgo function, Mercury still rules Virgo, which I found very interesting. It's actually really good for the lungs and strengthening the effect on them. So it's really good for strengthening lungs, aiding the respiratory system, which I only just realized recently. And for the last 2.5, maybe 3 years, I've drunk fennel tea like every single day, and I haven't had a cold or even a sniffle for the longest time. So I'm putting it down to that and the ginger. Aniseed is actually used for gripe water. So going back to the fennel, you see there how we've got the earthly part, the food, where it's helping us digest that, and the aerial part, which is for the respiratory system. With aniseed, this is actually used in gripe water to help children when they've got colic and digestive problems. So there seems to be, with this Mercury retrograde, I wonder if we're going to see people looking into this more, but also see maybe things coming up around how certain foods that we eat are good for certain things that we might find as challenges, but also how certain foods may cause issues with the respiratory system. As an example, I know when I was around 10 or 11, the scientists had just started to discover that too many peanuts weren't good for people with asthma. So we could see something like that, or a resurgence of it at this time. All of this stuff, as you can see, reflects on the food kind of thing and the air. So I found that really interesting. Finally, Mercury rules money and commerce and the flow on the exchange and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely expecting to see some stuff happen with that, possibly with the stock markets, but I think this will be more getting access to your money. May be a challenge at this time, so watch out for this. Also, Taurus rules money and goods. So, it's really interesting. And then what happens when the messenger god of finances, money, and commerce goes retrograde in the sign of money, values, and goods? Luxuries are probably going to skyrocket at this point, and things that we haven't considered, and we can see, right, prices are already going crazy around everything, but even things that we haven't considered as luxuries up until the price goes up, at that point we might be like, okay, this isn't something that I anticipated. Revisions of prices are likely to happen. One thing that I've also put here in my notes is the recession's already happened, people. It's already happened. What we're seeing now is the response to that. This is why we're seeing all the prices and stuff go a little bit haywire. And then finally, the Mercury Cazimi on the 21st is at 0 degrees of Gemini. That's pivotal because, as I said, that great conjunction that took place of 2021 happened at 0 of Aquarius. So it's offering a trine to that. So you want to think back to that point of 2020 in December, 2021 in December. What was happening for you? What was really shifting or changing or being set into motion at that time? Because at this point, you may see the second part of that start to happen. If you imagine this as a trine, so it's like 3 points, right, in a triangle. This is, the first one was the Great Conjunction. The second one is this Mercury retrograde. So we've got a third one the next time Mercury will go retrograde. What I've put here is that Mercury cazimi on the 21st of May is likely to be a small, not even a small piece, it will be the revealing of a piece of a puzzle that absolutely makes everything else make sense. It's that last piece that you needed where you kind of go, ah, okay, this is why. You see something in a different perspective. Now, as you can probably notice, I never mentioned any of the technical stuff and all the rest of it, but now it's relevant to talk about this. Retrogrades, Mercury retrograde in particular, is an opportunity to redo, renegotiate, revise, to go back over, to change or to integrate something that wasn't right the first time round. This is where we get a second bite at the apple, albeit maybe not the tastiest apple. Sometimes it's like that bitter pill that we need to swallow, but this could really be a great opportunity if you see it that way. All right, so this is the time to go back over things, and later on I'll talk about what houses this is going to happen for the signs. Denise, please hit us with your amazing HD knowledge and tell us, how is this going to show up?
The one thing I thought that when you were talking about the two retrogrades, we're having one again in October. You're always ahead of it, where it's happening between Virgo and Libra, and it feels like we're, when you're talking about the food and those types of things. I just thought this is where we're kind of getting the ideas, and maybe we're concretizing them when it comes to be October. I mean, that's when the harvest is there. You have more access to potentially stuff you might have grown, those types of things. And I thought that's really synchronistic. It sounds really interesting. Nice. So that was just an input I had on that one. Yeah, and everything with the, as you say, the usual retrograde. But as I said to you before, I really do feel like it's like we're in a cocoon. It feels like this energy for this particular retrograde is almost like a cocoon, which is odd because when you think about Mercury, you think of Mercury going all over the place. And I could say in a lot of ways that if I relate it to a human design body graph, when we have an open head, we're always thinking about a different thing, and we're obsessing about this, and we're moving to that, and that's very, very, very Gemini, and it is very mercurial too. When you get to Virgo, there's more of this grounding because it is an earth sign, but it's interesting how this is all sort of playing out. But ultimately, we have two gates, and I was looking at what particular gate it was going to be in, what line it was going to be in when you talked about the cazimi, and it is in the 6th line of the gate 8, which is called communion. And the gate 8 is really about this idea of it's a throat gate, exactly. And it is contribution. It is your specific contribution. When we talk about the gate 8, or we talk about any individual energy, and both of the energies that we're talking about are individual energies. One is the gate 8 and one is the gate 20. I'll talk about the gate 8 first, because that is the one that goes from basically that goes from Taurus. So I guess anyway, I'll still talk about it because we're going to actually, that'll be the last energy, and then it'll start to move forward again. And so we go through the gate 8, and then it's gate 20. I'm just trying to look at the so it's the Taurian that is going into the Gemini, and the Gemini is the gate 20, and the Taurian is the gate 8. Now, if anybody wants to know, I'm going to say that I think if you know a little bit of astrology, if you have any planets between the 24 degrees of Taurus and 0 degrees of Gemini, you would have the gate 8. And with the gate 20, it is anything between 0 degrees Gemini 0.07 and also 5 degrees 0.45 Gemini. And so, I mean, if you may not know the human design perspective, but if you know the astrology degrees, maybe you can just kind of plug it in and figure it out if it's something that's important for you. But I think it's going to be important for all of us in that it is individual energy, which really talks about being exactly who we are, this authenticity, bringing it authentic, not about being the best at anything. It is about, this is a voice of contribution. And I look at someone who brought her own perspective on, you know, on who she was. I don't know. I think we just kind of clicked out for a second there.
I was going to say, could you repeat that for us just because we lost you for a moment?
Yeah, no problem. I figured this was going to be, I'm sorry to say, I literally have a Gemini moon, and I told you 5 planets in Virgo, one of which is my sun, one of which is Mercury, and one of which is Venus. So we got all the players so I'm the problem here, just letting you know.
It wouldn't be a Mercury retrograde without
exactly.
This, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's obviously stationing just right now. But so where was I that where was I talking?
Being an authentic energy, an energy of authenticity, but also where we're kind of in the cocoon, and how this being on the 6th line was a very individual kind of energy.
Yeah, well, it is because every individual gate has 6 lines, and it just talks about a different kind of expression of the energy. It's the same theme, but you could say it's all fruit, and then you have a banana, an apple, an orange. Maybe it's not even that different, but it is kind of a different expression, or maybe even different flavors of an ice cream, but it's the same. It's all ice cream. So when we get to the gate 6, this is certainty that grows out of harmony. This is basically knowing when and how to give what you have, that special talent, that special gift that only you can bring to the world, knowing when and how to give it. And the thing about these throat gates that is most important, especially at this time, especially with Gemini, which is, you know, all about communication, is that we want to talk and say, oh, look at this, I'm so great, and I can do this, I can do that. Right now, that's not really the time to do it, because this is what we call projected energy. In other words, when someone primes a pump, you know, when your aura is ready because you have the right people in your aura, basically that's what it's saying. When the right people are in your aura, the right people are listening to what you have to say, that's when magic can happen. But if you just kind of blurt out all this wonderful yourself, doesn't make it any less wonderful, but the way it comes into the universe is not potentially ready for, you're not being ready. People aren't ready for what you have to say, and you really want people to be ready. And I mean, ultimately, you know, I always say, it's like, don't put your pearls before swine. Don't give those best things that you have, only you can give, to people who are not ready to listen and who actually don't deserve your time, because they're not the people that are right for you. If anybody's going to shoot you down, I mean, if it's somebody who, you know, you just kind of are talking and it just feels like the right thing, and maybe they can't really do much for you, but you just feel like you just want to talk about it, well, that's completely fine. When I talk about the swine, I talk about people who say, oh, well, what do you know? Why would you even talk about this? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we have, as I said, I told you, the phone ringing in my house, so we just ignore it. I mean, I am a problem today. Now you saw how smooth it was last time, and this time, of course.
I love it. I actually, this is great because it really demonstrates just how on point a lot of this stuff is, right? With all the things that we're talking about. It's great.
But I am the problem, just, you know.
And, all of it in motion, right?
Exactly. So I apologize. I know it's me. So ultimately, the gate 8 is really about just bringing exactly who you are. It's not about being the best. It's not about, this is not like logic. Logic is more like talent, where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. The gate 8 says you don't have to be the best, but you have to bring your own spin to the world, and you're showing up as you, and you're not showing up as a version of somebody else. So I'm not going to be a cover singer for another band, because if I am, that's not the expression of this energy. Now, you can be a cover band singer if you're sort of tapping into logic, but what we're doing now is we're tapping into our individual energy, exactly what we can bring to the table. And that is the key. So you might think, well, maybe I'm not good enough, but it's not about being good enough. It's about you walking into the world and saying, this is who I am, and this is what I can give to you. When all the pump is primed and your aura has the right people, and people say, oh, what do you have to share? What can you contribute? Because what happens is if we say something about what we can give and it just falls on deaf ears, it's like what happens, especially with the gate 8, because it's part of the 1-8 channel. It is one of these kind of energies that it really talks about your soul identity. It comes right from the soul of who you are. And when you get shut down, it can be like an injury that takes years for you to come back from. So that's why it is so important and relevant to trying to get your best self out into the world, because when you are found for your talent, because only you can do it. And I always say Martha Stewart, I don't know if you heard me say that before, I might have cut out them, but she brought her own specific version of who she was. It was only her. It means she spread it out in a lot of different ways, and she went from cooking to crafts to all the other things, but there is no other Martha Stewart. And was she the best at everything? She wasn't the best, but she had her finger in a lot of pots. She had specialists who would, or people who were really good in those specific things that she was talking about. But it was her name, it was her brand, it was her that was kind of giving her individual self, that nobody else is Martha Stewart. I mean, she's unique in a multitude of ways. You know what I mean? Whether you like her or not, she is very unique in that, I've seen her doing shows where she's out helping them, clean fish and mucking the.
You're back with us. Sorry about that. You cut out, so I had to pause it. So it's fine. Honestly, this is what we get, right? For recording the day before. So I apologize. This is actually my fault. But please continue. So I love this as well, because what you say about like this individuality and this authenticity is true. What you bring to the table, nobody else can do it the way that you do it. And that's really, really important. What I wrote down here while you were talking is, do you think that this energy could then help you find your own authenticity at the moment as well? Could you tap into it that way?
Yeah, I think that this is a time where we can tap into our creative voice and what we can bring, and start to think about what can we do, just like what can we bring to the table? Who are we truly? When all the doors are closed and nobody sees us, who are we? And what part of that do we want to show the world? What part of it do we want to share? And that's what this time is about. And the gate 20, like I can talk about that in a few minutes, but basically the gate 20 is just saying, what do you have in your reality right in this moment? Look in this particular moment in the now, show me what you like, what you don't like. Now, you don't have to make all the decisions about what you want to do in the future, but for now, at least look at it, like really look at it. What don't you like in your life? What do you like? What do you really need to work with? Because ultimately, this is a time to really get serious about what you want for your life going forward. And it is a time of potentially feeling melancholic, because this is at individual energy. Both the gate 8 and both the gate 20, which is these creative, individual, mutative energy where you are bringing something that's never been seen into the world. And how does that usually go? Well, people don't understand you. I always feel different. I don't feel like people get me. And this is a kind of energy because I do things differently. Everybody's walking up the left side of the staircase, and I'm walking up the right side. You're that individual where you're doing your own thing. So yes, the gate 8 is really going to be talking about melancholy and basically not just the gate 8 and also the gate 20, because it is individual energy. This will talk about this idea of I think if you look at some of the most creative people in history, they are always, many of them were people who also had stages of blues or melancholy, and it could have almost kind of slipped over to depression for some people. Ultimately, creativity comes and mutation comes with this idea of sometimes we have to sort of go into the depths of our being, which can be this melancholy and the blues, to find the beauty that is in there, because there is beauty. And I always talk about the lotus needs to be in the mud, and then eventually when it's ready to blossom, I mean, it sits in the mud and it knows that it will someday bloom. In its heart, it knows it's a heart of a lotus, but it knows that it's going to someday bloom. It doesn't know when, but it knows that eventually it will make its way out of that mud, and it will be out in the sunshine again. So if we can look at that as that's our life, and that we know that eventually we will come back out and we will sort of get out of that sense of feeling sort of very kind of, I mean, I know I get it myself. It's just this kind of flat kind of energy that you just feel really flat, and you don't really have any ups or downs. And I think the biggest thing that we can do, especially with Mercury retrograde in these particular gates, is to understand that this is part of being human, to allow it to flow. Because as soon as we start to wonder, oh, is there something wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? What is, what's the problem here? As soon as we start to wonder, then that stops the flow. This is energy that we need to allow flow and to do what it needs to do. And it always moves into something else. We know that no mood is forever. It always shifts, right? And sometimes it shifts faster than we want to. Maybe we're happy and we go down and we want the happiness to stay, or maybe we're blue for a second and we're back up into happy. So to understand that this is part of it, and it could be even even more prevalent energy, is something that I think is really important. And I think that the ways that we can work with this energy is music is really, really nice. It soothes the soul. Whatever you like to listen to music, being out in nature, anything physical activity where you're moving the energy and allowing it to do what it needs to do. And also anything related to creativity, whatever that looks like for you, because some people say creativity is out playing basketball, or, some people say it's painting. Some people say it's, I think that we have to expand what creativity really means and understand that there's a multitude of ways we can express ourselves. Whatever way you express yourself that makes you feel good, if that's singing in the shower, then do it, whatever. Allow it to flow, allow the energy to continue to move. The places we don't really want to go are where we're going inside and kind of bringing this energy in and not allowing it to go anywhere, just kind of pulling it in. Oh, why am I like this? And that's where we want to allow the energy to flow. It's not about not acknowledging it. It is more about acknowledging it and understanding that it is part of the process. It is part of the yin and the yang. There's always going to be a different part of what we're going to step into. And that's the biggest key for this energy, because like I said, I feel like we're going to be in like a cocoon where we're with ourselves. And when we're with ourselves, not everybody likes to feel that. Not everybody wants to be with themselves. They want to be, entertain me, show me something different. And this is not going to be the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but also to use as a means of escape. It's so important that you're able to, this is something that I sort of, anyone that knows me, like friends and family, I drill this into them all the time. You have to be comfortable with being on your own. You have to be comfortable in the silence. It's the same as like if you're sitting with somebody, be comfortable with that period where there's nothing being said, where you can just be one human being next to another human being and not have to have excitement or something going on for it to just be a moment. I love that you mentioned the melancholia, because as we talked about earlier, I've been feeling this for literally the last 3 days. I've been listening to like sad music and sad songs, like, stuff where you can hear the teardrop. That's always what I call it, like music that you feel it. It's like, it's beautiful, but it's sad at the same time. Like, and some of it's like been really upbeat music, but when you listen to the lyrics, it's like, yeah, this is actually quite a sad song, but I'm like, nah, that's cool. I'm okay. This is, this is what I need right now. And it's true, when you realize that all of the emotional states that you move through are just like the tide. They'll come in and they'll go out, and there will always be another one that follows it. It's something that you touched on earlier that we talked about before we started the video, was, you know, this question about people, you know, what's wrong with me? Why am I not happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Happiness and contentment, people, are very different things. Happy is a peak experience that requires maintenance. Content just bobs along the water, all right? And if you can remember that, with especially like today with all the challenges we've had with this video, right?
Yes. I'm almost scared to say, don't mention that thing in the room.
Don't swear. Okay.
Oh my.
Please continue. On to the gate 20, right?
Yeah, so for the gate 20, this locks into the integration circuit, it's called. And the integration circuit is basically, it is part of the cross of the sleeping phoenix that we are going to be going into in the new global cycle that I talk about in 2027. It is a very in the now kind of energy. I would say that Eckhart Tolle, if I'm actually pronouncing his and if you look at that image, you see an image of an individual. They're sitting on a bench. Now you see that there's light in the back of them, and then going forward, they're going into the darkness. So they're right in the center. They're in that very moment, and they're looking at what is it, an hourglass, and the hourglass is in that moment. And I think that that is a really good symbol of, you know, where are you in this moment? Because a lot of people, like my youngest son, we used to go on a vacation and he'd be like, when are we going home? When are we going home? Not that he wanted to go home, but because he was so happy to be there, he just wanted to stay there longer. And I said, just be here in this moment now. And that's the thing. We're always kind of looking to the next high. What's the next thing we're going to do? Where's the next, what about right now? You know, and that's the whole key, because you have this buildup of energy. Is like, oh, I can't wait to go into, you know, do this, this, and this. And yes, it's always nice to have something to look forward to. But in this very moment, like I would say 99% of our time is spent just doing the mundane things of everyday life, just living our lives, about brushing our teeth and taking a shower and going to bed and you know, doing our work, whatever that is, or whatever we do, take care of children, whatever we do, it's always going to be something that we're doing over and over and over again. But that is the magic, that you can find transcendence within the mundane. You know, if you are open, that is where you hear most people say, you know, I had this mystical moment. I was out, you know, washing the car, and suddenly I just had this moment of peacefulness, and it just kind of enveloped me. So we could have these moments of peacefulness, but we could also have these moments of looking at our lives and saying, I don't like what I see. And that's okay too, because if we don't ever really look at our lives or look at what we don't like in our lives, if we just go, oh, well, that person's like that, and they'll always be like that, and that's okay. Well, you know, someday I'll get back to it. I'll do something about it. Or that book you want to write, you know, you say, well, someday I'll get back to it. Or that new job you want to get to. Exactly. You know, someday I'll get back to it. But when do you get back to it? You know, a life, you know, there's just stories of this. There was somebody who passed away of cancer a long, long time ago. And of course, I'm getting into these melancholic stories, but the reality was, I heard a story about somebody, and I don't know if it was on the news or if it was just somebody. They had this beautiful set of, like a beautiful nightgown that was gorgeous. And it was like, I don't know, like beautiful lingerie, and they had it all done up in paper, like, you know, and it was in their drawer, and they were always going to have it for that special occasion, right? Or the candles that nobody wants to burn because, oh, you know, we're going to have it for that special occasion, or the bottle of wine that you've been, you know, keeping in your cupboard for so long for that special occasion. I mean, I used to have a bottle of wine for that special occasion, that big day I got the big break on the such and such. But you know what? Do it today. And that's what it says in this moment. What can you know, appreciate about your life around you, and what can you say, yeah, I need something to shift in this, and how am I going to move forward? It doesn't mean you have to do it during the Mercury retrograde, but it is, you know, kind of meeting those tough kind of questions about what you really want to do with your life, how you want to express yourself. And this is really individual energy. The both of them are individual energy, but this is very about very specific self-involved energy that is really about what do you want for your life? Not regardless of everybody else. What do I want for me? This is the I am now. And that's what the catch line of this is. I am now. I am in this moment now. What do I see? And that is, again, a very hard place for a lot of people to go. But if you go there, what you can find, the treasures you can find, beneath all the things that you don't like is amazing. You can find resilience. You can find all the things that are beautiful about you. And this is really a time for us to step into that ability to see who we are and be okay with who we are. And that's not an overnight thing, but it is a time that during this Mercury retrograde, we could actually be doing that.
That's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And actually it reminded me of something that I've just pulled this up to have a look because it really hit home. To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. That really speaks to me of that.
It's beautiful.
I love that quote. I actually heard it on the strangest film, like Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider film. So
they just shove those things in, and then it's like you get these people, these moments, and you go, oh, you click in. There's like all this, action, and then you click in, and you go, wow, that is so monumental, and you remembered it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's perfect, and it really speaks to what you were talking about. What I love about what you mentioned as well is if you don't like what you see in the moment, be okay with that for that moment, because the fact that you've recognized it means that you now know it, and now that you see it, you can change it. You can shift your perspective and say, okay, this kind of sucks, I'm not enjoying this, but that means that I can shift this, I can change this. And remember, because this is a Mercury retrograde, you can change your mind. You can change how you see something, you can reframe it. And because this is crossing the border of air, the thought or the realization or the cognizance of it, and then coming back into earth, you can implement something in order to move this forward. I love that. And the other thing that I put, because the way that you spoke about the gates, is I feel like really inspired right now, was use the gate 8 energy to figure out what is your special ingredient, what is your special sauce. That's the gate 8 stuff, right? Your contribution. And like Denise said, it doesn't have to be like in this moment. But then once you figure out what that authenticity is, what your secret ingredient is, live that every single day in every single moment. And you'll always get to where it is you need to be.
Yeah, and I think there's a really important thing that came to me today, and it is this thing, and I've thought about this before. I think that the world right now, we're all chasing this idea that we want to be special. I want to be special. I want to be unique. I want to be an individual. And I say, yes, be an individual, be unique, be special. But don't worry if other people think that you're special too. This is an individual. You feel good about your specialness. You can do this and nobody else can do it, but it doesn't mean that you have to have approval from anybody else. And that is like when we get back to that grace under fire. I mean, that's not part of this, but that is individual energy. This idea that you're creating because it feels good for you, not because you want people to accept you. This is about loving you. And then when you love you, you empower other people to love who they are. And automatically you just get this new vibe about you that you just carry around you, and people are literally attracted to it. When you are feeling oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I can't do this. You are good enough. You were given talents. Everybody was given talents. And I mean, that's what we have to remember. We all have talents, and my talents are not the same as your talents. And being okay with not being good at everything is perfectly fine. And I think that, that's why everybody's got a specialty. And that's why we have a Martha Stewart who knows that she uses her full channel. She has a 1/8. She uses her individuality, but she pulls in all the other people and she shines. She shines, not, and they shine too. Everybody wins. And that's what it's all about. It's like this whole idea of a contribution. And this contribution, even from the gate 8, is really about this idea of a contribution to upgrade humanity, right? And even the gate 20 is upgrading humanity. Like if we take it from the personal perspective, this is a global perspective of unity. This is a global perspective of bringing people together and saying, how can we in this moment see what the world is showing us, and how can we show up as our best self? And they call it right action, which is, you know, in this moment, how am I going to act when everybody else is doing something different? Can I do the right thing because I know it's the right thing? You know, if everybody, you know, the money's flying all over the place, but you know that somebody's up the road and they're freaking out because the wind blew all their, you know, cash down the road, and some people are taking off with it. Are you going to pick that cash up and give that back to that person? This is not about moral judgment. This is about what feels right for you. If you need the money and it's pennies from heaven, well, okay, you do you. Ultimately, it is about you do you, and if you're okay with who you are, what you did, it is.
Yeah,
That's
I love that. And we touched on that actually in the, if you haven't seen it, guys, we did a Jupiter into Aries special as well. That was really, really good, very in depth as well. And we talked about this idea of who are you when nobody's looking? How do you show up in the world in the spaces that nobody sees, when there aren't any accolades, when there's no one praising you, saying, oh, this is wonderful. Who you are in that space doesn't matter to the world, but it does matter to you. And it always does. So yeah, absolutely. I'm so here for it. What I'd also put here as well, just to go back on and slightly touch on this, is our minds are magnifiers, right? And when a planet goes retrograde, its energy and symbolism is also magnified. So if you get that melancholy moment, like I'm well versed with this at the moment. So when it comes up, I'm like, this is fine. I'll be like one of those proper artistic types that will just sit there like eating some food or, you know, binging on some sugar. Like I'm eating my feelings, leave me with it. And from that, I will get different ideas and different perspectives and stuff. I'm well versed at that. But if you're not the sort of person that knows how to sit with those states, talk to a friend, go out and watch the water if you've got anywhere near you that's like a stream or a river. You know, speak to a friend, connect with people, do something that you know will help you channel that energy. Like Denise said, you know, do something physical. I'm a big believer that when you do things that are physical, that raise your heart rate, it brings you into the now, because it reminds you like, oh, okay, my heart's pounding, I'm sweating, I'm alive. You know, it brings you into that present moment, which is so, so important. But if you can, and you're feeling a bit braver and a bit more daring, sit with how you feel and watch how your mind expands on and brings you creative ideas, or from that deep inner well, things will bubble up from you. Maybe like a little lyric in your mind where you can say, oh, you know what, I'll turn that into a meme. It sounds really stupid, but even those little bursts of creativity, or those moments, or like you were saying, like with basketball, hey, you know what, I think I might have figured out a new way to get the ball from someone. You know, like let your mind wander and play over all of the things that you do in your life while you're in that space, because it really is very creative.
Yeah, and I can even add to like the cards that I you know, put together. You know, when I started to put those cards together, I just always felt like a deck of cards would be helpful for me. Like it was all about me and what I wanted. And I thought an image would be beautiful, that so I could express the energy of what this gate meant. And then I started to create them. I started painting and I started doing different things. And it just suddenly, not suddenly, it's just over time, it started to evolve into something. I had no expectations. I had no intentions of ever selling my cards. I'm going to be honest here. It was really just a personal, thank you. It was just a really personal project. And I remember working on it and going, oh my gosh, the 64 cards, that's a lot of cards. And I was like, you know, but just plugging along and saying it's every day is every day. But what I'm saying is that I began something creative because I felt like I wanted to be creative, and that's where it went to something else that I hadn't expected. So there are people in the world who have my cards who are using them now, and I'm very, you know, I would never have expected that. And I think that's beautiful. And I mean, you using them, you know, like you do. And those are never things that I ever thought about. And I know it's kind of like a me show that I'm talking about, but really it is showing that we can just, and I'm not an artist. I'm not good at, you know, at all. Like, I'm not like one of these people who can do hyper realistic anything. I tap into things and I sort of enjoyed it. And I just kind of put my energy and my thought, and kind of everything was slowly coming together. And that was my creation. And my creation is completely different from everybody else. And there are people who will look at it and go, well, yeah, it's whatever. But I'm okay with it. And really, that's all that matters, you know. And that's where we have to be, where we are doing things. We are being out in the world. We're writing a story. We're you know, writing a book, or we're starting a podcast, or we're doing something that inspires us. And when we're inspired, it just kind of comes out like this, you know, energy, and people are inspired as well. It's not like you're intentionally trying to, as soon as you start to say, well, I'm going to go out and inspire people, immediately it's going to fall flat, because especially with individual energy, it's not about inspiring people, it's inspiring you. When you're inspired, like you are now, right? Mm-hmm. You feel empowered. And, you know, I guarantee later on, if you meet some people, it'll be like, whoa, wow, your energy is really nice today. What's up? You know what I mean? And that's what happens. It's not like you decided, oh, I'm going to go out and inspire these people. It just comes from somewhere inside of you that you just allow to blossom and grow.
Yeah, I love it. That's brilliant. Okay, so shall we, speaking of cards, let's
Absolutely
move into the card pool. So we're going to do something a little bit different this time, which we've done previously, I'm fairly certain. But today we're going to do something slightly different. So as always, whenever we're talking about astrology, we're talking whole sign astrology, and we are talking about the tropical zodiac. Just so that everybody's aware, you want to check on your ascendant sign first. That's going to be more about the overall, the day-to-day of your life, how this sort of shows up on that daily level. And it very often gives you little glimpses of how you can sort of sidestep things that might come up on that daily level. Your sun sign energy, this is going to be the overarching energy trend or theme of your life. This will help you tap into what the bigger broad strokes of the picture are actually saying to you. And then your moon sign, this is more about the deep you that you don't really share with anybody besides your partner, your children, or your, like, the people that really know you, know your moon sign. And this could also just be about how it speaks to you on an emotional or even an energetic level. So we are going to pull one destiny card from the Human Design Oracle deck, and we're going to pull one card from a full deck. Denise, when you're ready, please just say when, and I'll pull from the
when.
top. Okay, so that's those. And I have the Ciro Marchetti Gilded Tarot here. When you're ready, just say when. Ooh.
When.
Okay, so for Aries, the Mercury retrograde coming out of Gemini into Taurus is going to be happening across your 3rd house and 2nd house axes. And what I've put here is your local environment is likely to have an impact on your finances or your resources in some way. This could also be that something that you're paying for or something that you're sourcing locally may change in price and or availability. On another level, this could also be a time where your skills are being revised, and this could also be a time where you're enhancing the skill set that you have in order to make you more money. So this could be really exciting for that reason. Your destiny card is the Gate 50 and responsibility. Denise, what do you think about this?
I mean, this is really talking about the rules and regulations of your life. And I think if you're looking at in relation to that theme, that 1st house, I mean, is Aries, is it what is Aries?
3rd and the 2nd house for Aries.
3rd and 2nd, yeah, because there's more than one. Yeah, so I guess this is really looking at how you work with your finances and stuff like that, but it is really responsibility that sometimes we overshoot, you could say. So we feel like we're responsible for maybe too many things that we're not necessarily responsible for. And this is like really kind of honing it down to say what truly is your responsibility in life, or are there responsibilities that maybe you should be taking on but you're not. So there's always going to be both sides of the coin. So it's really the responsibility is it too much or is it not enough? Where are you going to meet in the middle?
Nice. I really like that. But with this, you have the Knight of Swords. So I would say this would be a time where, as an Aries, this Mercury retrograde may show you where you're being a bit too hasty with your finances. This could also be a time where it may be tempting, but because it's the Knight of Swords, try to curb the impulse to throw money at a problem. Okay, well, this has happened. This is a problem. This is an issue. I'll spend whatever I have to make it go away. That kind of level of ignorance, and I mean this in the best way, could end up, it's like you shoot yourself in the foot financially, and then you deplete your savings or whatever. Try to curb that impulse now. And also when it comes to conversations that you might have about money or resources, just know that they could get a little bit intense around this time. All right, for Taurus, this is happening in your second house. So it's going to come out of Gemini into your first house, which is all about you. So for you, Taurians, I have your resources are being considered, and it might see you getting really serious about how you use your money and your resources to enhance your own life or your own experience. This could be something as simple as giving yourself a gift or taking better care of yourself. It might also see you revising how you value and treat yourself and your physical self, because obviously we're talking about the first house here. So you could really be rethinking at this time, you know what, let me spend this money on improving myself now so that I don't, run into a challenge or an issue later on, which I find really interesting. And obviously because this is in your sign, I really feel like this is going to help you see yourself in a different, more worthy light in some way. Your destiny card is, I love this card, the Gate 4 and Answer. What do you think, Denise?
Well, I mean, this is, you probably have some input on it too, but the way I look at it is sometimes we're just grabbing for anything to sort of solve our problems instead of actually sitting with it for a little while. And I think that right now is a time to sort of sit and contemplate. And like I always say, an answer in the moment doesn't mean it's a good answer. It means that it's in the moment. So sometimes things need to marinate and you need to wait and see sort of what shows up in your reality and kind of get some I would say backup to that answer that came. And also don't just listen to anything that everybody else is saying, like check it out for yourself. That's another thing that it's very easy. And this is, this is all contained within this is to kind of fix the chaos in your life. You might grab that special, what is it? The 10-second, I want everything to change in my life in 10 seconds and now it's done. You know what I mean? And that's what this energy can be about.
Yeah, I really like that. You have this, interestingly enough, with the 5 of Pentacles. This card, interestingly enough, actually represents Mercury in Taurus. So I find that
Very
really
cool.
intriguing. Aside from all of the usual meanings of, challenges with finances, etc., and especially with the Answer card, this, I kind of feel like in a sense, it echoes what came up for Aries, but it takes it further in that you like you mentioned, you buy into this thing that you think is going to solve everything immediately, when actually the answer is closer at hand. And the reason I feel that is because in the 5 of Pentacles, especially in the Rider-Waite deck, this card actually speaks to the sanctuary that you refuse to see because you're feeling how you feel in this moment. So it's really, really interesting how they kind of, blend together there. That 5 of Pentacles as well is also asking you to be kind to your body. So if you've got any niggles, any old injuries, specifically old injuries, because we're talking about a Mercury retrograde, if you've got anything that comes up or echoes that, this would be a time to be conscious of it and say, right, last time this healed, what did I do to get to that level of healing, and what have I undone, or what do I need to do to get back to that space? For Gemini, this is happening in your first house, obviously, because Gemini, Mercury retrograde. and it's going to come back into your 12th house, that infamous 12th house. So how you see yourself could be changing in relation to your past. This could be a time where something that you believed about yourself, or something that you believe to be true about you, it might be questioned very deeply, especially when Mercury goes direct. So maybe you have a conversation with somebody and they highlight to you, like, you know, you always do that, or you always say that about yourself. And you're like, what? I do. And then you're having to really check in, like, okay, yes, I actually do say that quite often, but where does that come from? Why do I think this way about myself? And this could be something from your past, from your childhood, maybe even, you know, a throwaway. And sometimes it really is that, right? For all of us, sometimes you remember like a throwaway comment that somebody made. And when you say it to them, they're like, what? I was joking. I didn't even, but at the time we take it on board. And it's like, you know, from that moment on, I vowed to never, and you realize that you build that into your belief system in some way on a very deep level. You could really address this now. It might also be for some of you as well on a financial level, but it might see you realizing that you've denied yourself of some kind of knowledge because you didn't think it was accessible to you because of who you were. Like, you know, I shouldn't have studied this because I'm not smart enough, or I can't do maths, or, you know, whatever it might be. A story that you've told yourself can now be rewritten, but you're going to have to really look at it. Your destiny card, dear Gemini, no way, is the gate 33 and looking back.
Well, I don't really need to say much about that, because that's exactly what it is. It is this sitting with your memories. It truly is. It's sitting with your memories, and finding out what everything meant, and taking the grains of good things from it that you can learn when you move into the future.
I mean, just right. You just can't make it up.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Right, you've got the Hermit card. So the Hermit card is a quest, and yes, it can be a quest out into the world, but very often the Hermit is a quest that we take internally. This is a journey, a vision quest for some people. It could be where you delve into your literal past, and this is you going inward. The star that he carries in that lantern is about following your own true north, and it doesn't take you out, it takes you in. For Cancer, this is happening in your, so the boundary that this is going to cross for you is the 12th house and the 11th. Especially for Cancerians, I feel like this is going to be about people. This will be people coming back into your life, old friends, old colleagues, possibly even an old benefactor of some kind could show up. An old wound or issue around friends could be buried at this time. So like you could bury a hatchet with a friend. If you've had a falling out or there's been a rift, this could mend it and seal it. I'm going to be honest, as I was saying that in my mind, I saw, like, you know, when a scar heals, so it might not be exactly the same, but if it's healed, right? If you can forgive and kind of move past it, allow yourself to do so. This is definitely one of those blast from the past energies, though. This will be the, you know, the I miss you text, the long time stranger, haven't seen you for ages, or do you remember when we used to work at ... Like there's someone, this will be about a someone for the Cancerians, I believe. All right, for your destiny card, you have the gate 34 and power.
Yeah, this is actually, it's really interesting because this actually links into the gate 20. So it really is just talking about this individuality. Are you being so busy with your life that you're forgetting to sort of look at your life to see where you are? Because this can be extreme busyness where you're always sort of running away from maybe something that you're supposed to see about yourself. So. Yeah,
I love that. And really, what is self-reflection besides seeing ourselves through other people's eyes, right? With this, you have the star card. Okay, That's really nice. The star basically says, and this is actually a card of friendship because it's Aquarius ruled, but the star basically says, if you want it, the healing is there. If you are able to see it exactly as it is, as it really is, rather than how you would like to idealize it, progress can truly be made, and there is a future for the friendship or the connection or even yourself to be more settled, but you're going to have to be really honest about what is present. For Leo, my ascendant brothers and sisters, this is happening across your 11th house and your 10th house. So for you guys, I have an old benefactor might come back into your life. It might even be a person that you've worked with or collaborated with previously. So expect, you know, to hear from persons such as. It might make you more available for opportunities that come up through the career, but you're having to, I don't know why, I just get this feeling that whatever comes up, it's probably going to have an element of you needing to bend over backwards to make this happen. It's kind of like, okay, yes, this is a great opportunity, but I have to completely rearrange my schedule, or I need to be at a certain place at a certain time. It's got that kind of about it. It'll also see you looking to approach old things or even bringing old ideas off the shelf. When I wrote this today, I was like, this is so relevant for me right now, because I'm literally bringing something back in. It could be something that you've tried to do previously but failed with, that this time round, it's like it works. And if you're anything like me, and I can admit this because, you know, I'm human and this is my community, so whatever. If you're anything like me, when it goes right, eventually you kind of sit back and say, well, what did I do wrong the first time round, right? Why didn't this work for me then? For a whole host of reasons, probably. Your destiny card, of course, is the Gate 17 and Opinions. Denise.
Well, I mean, you know, this is the whole thing. Like, there's always going to be somebody to tell you what you didn't do right, or even yourself, because that's what the story is. But if you look at everything we call a failure, and I put that in quotation marks, there are no failures. There are only learning opportunities. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but ultimately, every time we don't hit the mark, every time we get on a bike and we fall off and we skin our knee, we learn a little bit more on how we can, and eventually we learn how to ride that bike, or we learn how to do that thing, whatever it is. So it's just being kind to yourself and understanding that, you know, this is, and the Gate 17 is logic. So it means that this is like a tried and true, keep doing, wash, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, keep doing it. And eventually you will get that thing that you want.
Love it. Perfect. All right, great. And you have this with the Knight of Cups. So I'm going to second what Denise said. If you stick at whatever it is that you're doing, if you continue on the path that you're on, even if that looks like drudgery, or it feels like, you know, this again, or more of this, the Knight of Cups is a solid offer or opportunity which backs up the astrology. So there is an offer coming in, but you're having to work for it, you're having to graft for it, and you're also having to say, okay, you know what? Yes, something about maybe my approach needs to change. And if I didn't get it right, so what? I'm still human. And the Knight of Cups suggests that even with the imperfections or the flaws, you still get something great out of this. Virgo, this is happening for you guys in your 10th house and your 9th house. So your career and status in the world obviously are being considered, but they're being considered by you, because Mercury is your ruling planet. So this is you thinking about how you show up in the world. How do people view me? How do I want that to shift or to change? And what can I do about it? It also means that you might decide to bring, almost like bring something new into a relationship. So maybe you say to a partner, because, you know, your 10th house is your status, I would like us to go hiking. or you know, like can be anything, something really obscure. It could be you know what, I want us to, you know, it could be any number of things, just as you can imagine. It could also see you preparing for a launch of a product or a service, but you're likely to be doing this behind the scenes because it's a retrograde. So when you do things under a retrograde energy, you have to work 3 times harder to get the same result. But what I've found is when you do that work in the Mercury retrograde, the results tend to be a lot better because you've really focused on it. You know, you've had to go over it. Yes, sometimes there'll be mistakes and more than enough typos, but right, it's good energy nonetheless. I also like this for you guys for getting more professional training. That's that 9th house coming into play. So some of you might think, does my knowledge in this area need to be upgraded? For some of you, this might even be deciding to share the knowledge that you have in a broader way, a website, a book, a blog, taking something out into the world that helps you through your career shine. And I also like this because it might be an opportunity through your work to travel. And that's going to open up a whole load of other doors for you. Your destiny card is the Gate 31 and leadership.
Yeah, this is a very logical energy as well. This is like, again, this is where you are bringing your best self to the table, but you're also looking at the people that you're leading. And so if we're in a 10th house and 9th house type of thing, you know, it is about not just you. Like, what are your people saying to you? What are the people that are supporting you in your work or whatever you're doing? What are they saying? What's their input? Because this kind of leadership is everybody gets an opportunity. This isn't like that sort of regal leadership of the Gate 45. This is the leadership of the of dolphins, where they all come in and they have, you know, if they get food or something, they all take an opportunity to get a piece of that food. And that's kind of what it's about. It's everybody should have a little bit of something.
I love that. It actually reminds me of a story that, so when in my youth, I worked at a bar and there was a guy who'd gone traveling to Tibet and he did some work at an orphanage. And he, you know, one day he was going out to the town to get some stuff from the shop. So he bought one of the kids just a bottle of Sprite. And he said, you know, it was quite a large bottle, but even still, it was just a bottle of Sprite. And so the boy was holding it like all the way. And he was like, are you not going to drink it? And he was like, oh no, I'm just waiting till I get back so I can share it with everybody else. And I will never forget that story, because when he told me, like, my face just went, like, you know, I could feel like it was just something that really hit me so deeply. And if you are a Virgo, sun, moon, or ascendant, what is your community saying that they want more of from you? You know, that's them saying, we're already invested, give us more of this. Your tarot pool, oh, wow. Yeah, you've got the Page of Cups. Whatever you love about your work or your career, if you lean into that now with your creativity and your heart space, you could absolutely blow this out of the water. What's really important with that Page of Cups is that you trust your intuition implicitly. This is a very psychic card. And so those moments at which you have that inspiration or that flash of, yeah, this is what I want to give to them, you know, maybe ask the question, put it out there to see what it comes back as. But if it's something that you truly love and your heart is in, you will be very successful with it, really. For Libra, this is crossing the boundary of your 9th house and your 8th house. I put here, if any of you have got anything of a legal nature in progress, especially something to do with resources and money, and it doesn't have to be something scary. This could be that you're waiting to sign documents on a house. You know, it doesn't always have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm, you know, the court law. It doesn't always have to be awful. Sometimes it can be great. It's just, if you've got something in the process, this could see it needing to be revised. You're having to go over that contract again to renegotiate, to re-advise. Maybe you're getting a second opinion on something, especially if money or resources are involved. This could be a time to consider where your beliefs around occult matters are shifting. And I read this one, when I was writing this today, I was really excited by this. I don't know why. I get the feeling that a lot of Libran people are going to be looking at stuff and saying, okay, I used to believe this, but now I've had an experience with something different or something other, and it's changed me. And now I'm starting to understand that, yes, I'm very scientific, but there is stuff that can't be explained that way. And that really, really woke me up, because I was like, we've got a whole bunch of Librans coming over to the woo-woo. And I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. And this could also be a time where your own psychic abilities are amplified in some way. I like this energy for skeptics becoming believers and believers becoming more discerning. So, you know, you're Libran, so you're going to balance it out. Your destiny card is the gate 26 and greater good.
Well, this is basically, as long as you're doing something where everybody wins, this is really this is talking about financial stuff. So, I mean, eighth house could sometimes be related to the money that other people make, you know, that are related to you. But ultimately, whatever you do, whatever you're putting out into the world, and if it is related to the woo, as long as everybody's winning and it's not just where you're just getting from it, which I don't think most people are generally going to be doing that. As long as it's for the greater good and everybody benefits, then there is a potential to have make some money from it, basically, you know, to have some financial rewards.
Nice, really nice. And you have this with the judgment card. So the judgment card is all ahead change, right? This is a big card of change, but it's also a call to action. So when this shows up, or when this is highlighted to you, you are going to need to be ready to move on it. Not like immediately, you know, all guns blazing and charging in, because it is still a Mercury retrograde, but you are having to kind of say, okay, you know what, this has come up, it's come up for a reason. Let me chuck it around and see where this actually takes me. The judgment card also as well, I call this the true blast from the past card. So this could be, even though it's the ninth house, which is a future orientated house, it's a very lucky house in that it tends to be divine blessings that show up for you. And so I kind of get this feeling that you're going into something maybe like, okay, well, this is going to be good, it's going to be this, and that's it. But what you get from it is so much bigger than that. Don't bank on it. As with any of this stuff, the second you start saying, yeah, well, you know, I'm going to get this massive blessing, that cake slice is probably going to be a bit smaller.
Oh no.
So just, yeah, right. Just keep it open and say, okay, it's going to be. Scorpio, this is happening for you guys across your 8th and 7th house energies. And this I find really interesting, because the 8th house it's the house that you have the most affinity with, because the Scorpio energy sort of resides there. This for you guys, I think is going to really highlight to you what your own deepest desires are. Now, I've always said that Scorpios, the reason they can revel in the dark is because they come into the world sort of quite enlightened. And so they're able to carry that really heavy, sort of dense, dark energy, and just be like, this isn't dark, it's not evil, this is human nature. It's the other side that we don't want everybody to see. But for you guys, because of that 7th house energy, I think for the single people, this will be showing you where you're really ready to open up to somebody on that deep level. So if you've been single for a long time, if there's somebody that's kind of on your periphery and you've just met them and you're like, this could be a time where you really kind of say, no, I have been too closed. I am ready to open up, and I actually think it's time. For those of you that are already taken, I really like this for you and your partner, getting serious about what the future holds for your partner and for you, and how you can support each other in moving forward with that. So this could be really, really nice for, you know, for both single and taken Scorpios. Your destiny card is the gate 63 and doubt.
Well, that's it. But I think that, you know, doubt is always healthy, in that we always need to prove for ourselves what's true for us and what isn't. if we're always relying on what other people say, we're not going to get the true story, because only we know. And this goes back to when we were talking about this the other day, just this idea of, you know, inside the answers that you seek. You just have to be okay with pulling them out and getting the answers. Like I always wanted to learn how to use tarot cards, but the problem with me is I didn't want to get the answers that were not all full of light and love, not necessarily that, but if there was something that it wasn't pretty, I was like, oh, do I really have to? But you know what I mean? So this is where we have to look at all sides of an equation and figure it out for ourselves, really.
Yeah, love that. And you have this with the Queen of Cups, who technically is a water sign woman. So this could be a water sign person, which means effectively, Scorpios, you show up for yourself. And I really like this, especially because Denise has already talked about how individual energy is so important throughout this whole Mercury retrograde season. This is important for you guys because it means that to truly nourish and nurture yourself, the Queen of Cups, you're going to have to embrace the doubt. And maybe that looks like, well, you know what, I feel like I'm really ready to open up. And maybe it's this person, maybe it isn't. Maybe your intuition tells you that you need to step outside of that sort of, I'm fine on my own at the moment, when really deep down, that's not the case. This is about opening up to and nurturing your deepest desires and being okay with whatever comes up. I like this for kind of chuck in some ingredients in your own inner cauldron, right? And just seeing what kind of bubbles up to the surface. Sagittarius, this is happening for you guys across your 7th and 6th houses. Relationships in general are going to be considered on a much sort of deeper level. But this is also a moment of deep honesty or deep conversation with a partner in life, in business, or friend. What I mean by this, it could also be a space where your competitors show up. So for a lot of you, this could be a time where you're having really deep conversations with a partner, where you are sort of talking about, what comes next, where do we go from here? It could also be a time where maybe your thoughts around the relationship become quite, I want to say like incessant. So you might have a really sort of, not rigid, although when Mercury comes into Taurus, maybe, you might have a really rigid idea of how the relationship should be, but isn't. But again, check in with that to see how much of that is just your thoughts and how much that actually is the case. And this is where the communication will come in. You might become acutely aware at the moment of who your competitors are. And it might see you either adjusting your trajectory or your approach. And the reason I say that is because your 7th house, it's actually, they say that this is the house of open enemies, which I understand to be competitors. So you may see something that a competitor does in relation to something you've already done. This might be, you feel like somebody's taking your work or they're borrowing from it really heavily without crediting you. That's your point at which, if you feel that melancholia set in, right, that we talked about, that's the point at which you say, okay, I'm going to switch this up. I'm going to do what you can't. You can copy everything else, but you can't copy this. All of this, this is all me. So tap into your thing. And then finally, if you have pets, this might be a time where they require more from you at this time. And it might put a strain on the relationship financially, because your 6th house is pets as well. For this destiny card, you have the gate 60 and limits.
Yeah. That kind of says it all. Basically, what this says is that this is a card of mutation, though. This is a card of evolution. This is a card of when you wait and let the door open for you, there could be some pretty amazing things that open up for you. But when you try and shove through that door, you might end up just not having anything when you move through the door. You know what I mean? So this is really saying that the limitations that we have in our lives, they slow us down so that we can get all the things that we want. If you're flying down a road at 1,000 miles per hour, you're not going to see everything. But if you're kind of made to go slow, then you're going to see more. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I love that. Take the scenic route,
Yeah.
Sagittarius. All right, and your tarot card for this is the Empress. I find this so interesting because the Empress is, yes, it's fruitfulness and abundance, but it's also your environment, and it's also the fertile soil that you plant your ideas in. And so this suggests to me that there is growth within the relationship and even within your, your day-to-day routine as well. There's room for expansion, providing you allow yourself to expand. You can't expand the world, you can't expand anything around you, but if you create that space in here, there's suddenly room for everything. I love that. Capricorn, this is happening for you across the 6th house and the 5th house. So I put here, your daily life is being reconsidered. How much time do you or do you not make for yourself to do the maintenance on your body? It's one thing to say like, oh, I haven't been able to get my hair done because the kids have needed this, this, and this. Okay, that's fine. Haven't been able to go to the doctors because the family have needed ... or my business has needed ... 5 weeks in, system crash, you're laid up for 7-8 weeks. That there were warning signs, there were things that said to you, this is time to slow down, to look after myself. Are you doing that work now? This could also be where your relationship or your romantic life may have taken, if you have children, you could be looking at them and thinking, okay, I love my children, but I have sacrificed a lot. I haven't been able to do anything with my partner. We haven't had time together. It's just been all about the kids. And that's wonderful. Hat off for being an awesome parent, but happy people make good parents. Healed, healthy people also make good parents, right? So look after yourself as well. Also, are you needing to up-level your health or your knowledge in order to assist your children? So because the 5th house has that child energy, if you've got children, you might suddenly, and I know every parent that I know has certainly had those moments where one day they come home with homework and you're like, I have no idea how to help you with this. Google, right? So you're having to up level your skills. You're a Capricorn. There's nothing that you guys can't learn. So you'll have no problems with it, I don't think. And then finally, if you don't have children, where personal projects and business ideas are taking more from you than they're offering in return, and where you're kind of like slave to it, like has your business overtaken and now it's just like this machine that constantly needs feeding that doesn't really give anything back. This might be a time to start revising, okay, if it doesn't work or it's not working, what am I prepared to do, give, or release? Your destiny card, of course, is the gate 6 and resolve.
Yeah, this is diplomacy, this is balance, this is yin yang, and I think it really does kind of interact with this idea of how much are you giving and how much are you receiving. I think that really we can, and this is also war and peace. So it's like try and find balance somewhere in the middle before you, if you're taking care of the kids and giving up everything, before you completely burn out, can you find a place of where you need to stop? I mean, I used to think of when I was, with my kids, three kids, three years apart, and just driving around on empty all the time. And eventually you just, there's nothing left. So you just have to give back to yourself. And this is what it's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. Your tarot card, our tarot has a sense of humor, is the 6 of Cups, right? Which is
there you go.
to do with children and happiness and abundance. Yes, in the Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley, the tagline for this card is the Lord of Pleasure. And so what this really, and also this card is a card of the past. Where were those moments where you had found the balance? And interestingly enough, 2 6s can represent either balance or irritability. So it's really funny that this has come up in so many ways. Like, this really is about you finding that balance point. Think back to, you know, that moment or that time where you were able to juggle it all, and ask yourself, what was the defining characteristic that allowed you to do all of that? You may find that it was that you were giving yourself more time out. For Aquarius, your 5th house and 4th houses, these are going to be activated for you guys. So this is time to rethink romance and fun. And I know a lot of Aquarians out there will be like, so it's about time. A lot of clients, a lot of friends have all expressed this to me. This could also be a time where you're choosing to do something that makes you feel like you're taking a risk. Everything that we do with the 5th house is speculative gambling, romance, sex. You know, it's those calculated gambles or risks that we take, things that kind of make you remember that you're alive. They tap you into the fun or the joy of life, like falling in love, right? You're a complete numpty because you're not thinking straight, but you're like, I don't care, everything's wonderful, right? Because you're in that space. This could also be a time where you start thinking about where you need to bring more of this into your life. And it might also be a time where your home and family are being reconsidered or restructured because of that 4th house element. This could also be a distance makes the heart grow fonder kind of energy. So for those of you that are single, I wouldn't be surprised if this Mercury retrograde saw you connecting or reconnecting with somebody, but it's like, it's fleeting, right? It comes in, it's wonderful, it, you know, excites you, and you've got all of this, and then it's like, yeah, but they live like 100 miles away. You know, it's not practical, but it is wonderful. And so if it is just a fleeting energy, let that be enough. For those of you that are partnered, married, or in long-term commitments, again, I would say this is a time where the grown-ups get to be the kids. So, you know, it's kind of like a little bit of a switch. And then finally, if you've got a work from home project or anything like that, it might need to be reordered. It might also need a second opinion with somebody that has more knowledge on that area than you do. So if you work from home, with homes, property, real estate, or anything like that, whatever your project is, it's a good idea, but you're needing to hammer out the details. There's obviously some stuff that needs to be reworked. Your destiny card is the gate 13 and listen.
This is actually the other side of the gate 33 that we were looking at with the memories. And it is this idea of you might be a magnet for people telling you their stories and telling you who they are. And from those stories, you can grow, but you can also help other people. This is where we collect the stories and we can share them with other people at those right times so that they feel something, or you can even empower people because of the stories that you've told them. So it's just about that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And not only that, if people are giving you their stories willingly, you can use those to solve problems for more people. And therefore,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Create a project or a business idea out of that. How many people have this problem? How many people have this challenge? And, you know, I'm an Aquarius sun. I love to listen to people's stories, and the quirkier and the crazier, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Your tarot card, wow, is the 10 of Cups. The 10 of Cups, aside from all of its usual meanings, represents a feeling or a sense of home. And this tells me that right now, while you're searching for that sense of home, you may find it in a place or a person that you didn't expect to find it. And that may not make a lot of sense to you at the moment. And it might not even really get a foot in the door until Mercury goes direct, and then you're really clear on how you can pursue it. But because it's the 10 of Cups, this can bring you material wealth. This can, like, I don't know why, I just get this feeling that one of the stories that people tell you, being in the right place at the right time, is going to give you being that ear. you being that support is going to give you what you need in order to make something explode in the best way. Nice. And then finally, last but not least, Pisces. This is in your 4th house, your place of living, how you interact with it on a day-to-day level. Because this is crossing the barrier of the 4th house and the 3rd, it might be that this is, it might see you sort of, your neighbors and the people that you connect with in your local environment could be changing. It might also be that there's a lot of people coming and going in that space, people moving in, people moving out, people, you know, like, and it's just a bit like Piccadilly Circus. It could also be that you're deciding to move around this time. Maybe you're moving out of somewhere, maybe you're moving in. It could be that you're viewing properties or getting ideas of things that you want to do to your own property. And it might also be that some of you are looking at skills that you have that are going to waste that you're wanting to bring back into the fold. So I am a, I don't know, trained dog groomer, and that skill's not being used, right? Well, how can you bring that into the fore and potentially make more money from it doing something from home? You know, like this, it might only be a side hustle, but it's definitely a skill that you have is being reworked in order to be brought back in. Your destiny card is the gate 42 and closing.
This is exactly what you just said. This is getting the most, reaping the last bits of whatever you can get from something. That's ultimately what it is. It can be closing a cycle altogether, but it can also be starting a new cycle built on something, a foundation you already have. So in other words, picking an old skill up but shifting it up a little bit. Yeah,
nice.
So.
Yeah, I really like that. And I also like this, what you said about the closing of a cycle, because what came to my mind immediately was closing of a chapter. So this would be great, you know, like, I know, I mean, I'm not a Pisces, but I know for myself, I found it impossible to get away from my hometown. Like, no matter how far I go, I always end up back here. So, you know, if you've had that challenge, this Mercury retrograde might do it. And your tarot card is the 10 of Swords. When people see this card, they tend to freak out, and I totally get why. It's quite a scary, ominous card. The thing that I often say to people when this card shows up, the beauty in the 10 of Swords is that it's done. It can't get any worse. It can't expand or mutate or whatever. It's done. This is where the head comes off the zombie, right? You know that nothing else is happening from here. The other thing with this, though, it can be a little bit combustible. So however you're leaving the place that you're in, if you are changing homes, etc., or maybe leaving a job, it could be a little bit tetchy. You know, how this happens could be a little bit more intense or a little bit more extreme than you had imagined. All in all, though, I really like that because, like I said, the 10 of Swords is the end of something. The closing card represents the end of a chapter. I really feel like this is you freeing yourself of the karma of a place that you're from or that you've lived in or even worked in. So that is all the 12 signs. We got there in the end. Denise, it is always an absolute pleasure to have you on the channel. Thank you so much for bringing all of that amazing knowledge from human design. Thank you so much for sharing it. Please tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get your deck.
DeniseMathew.com, and it's just right if you want to buy the deck or if you just want to check out my website, because I do have freebie human design stuff, that like some PDFs and stuff like that. So anything that you're interested in. I also have my channel HD with Denise Mathew, Human Design with Denise Mathew, and like I said, from beginners right to people who've been in human design for a while, there's something there to find. So and thank you so much for allowing me to show up again and bend your ear and talk about all the stuff I love to talk about. And thank you for all the information I got about all the different signs, because again, as I always do, I always listen for all the people I know.
Yeah, brilliant. Same, me too. Thank you so much. Have a great time of it, guys. And remember to be as conscious as you possibly can throughout this Mercury retrograde. Trust yourself, trust your intuition, sit with how you actually feel and let that lead the way. Let that guide you towards whatever it is that you need to know, whatever it is that you need to see. And when the moment arises, don't be afraid to act on the impulse that shows up for you. With that said, take care and we'll see you soon.